there's interaction design language, to be clear, but then there's also conversion. So when it comes to conversion, that's where I find myself challenged with writing the copy for that.
So you design the websites with like where the buttons go, where the pictures go, the videos and stuff like that? Yeah. Oh, applications for the phone.
Sometimes the web is as well.
Yeah.
But applications.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's a good segue, because when you are designing or writing copy or thinking about your business, what you want to say, copywriting is at the core of everything, in my opinion. And before you even figure out, okay, what font do I want to use, what colors do I want to use, what logo, what type of app or design do I want to use, really you want to first think about the copy, because that's the overall message. And once you have the overall message, then you can move on to different things. So here's a process. I'm just going to write out the framework, and then I'll go and dive deeper into each one of the things. So the first is the big idea. And what this is how you frame and conceptualize what it is that you want to talk about in such a way that's exciting, in such a way that's brand new. Like if you're selling a supplement, there's thousands and thousands of people who are selling supplements, and how do you make yours stand out? What do you do? What do you say about it? What's different about what you have to offer versus someone else's? And what's going to make them want to buy yours? So just things like that you have to think about, and that's what this is right here. And then the next thing is testing it. And if you notice, these first two things, and actually the first 3 to 4 things, are not actually writing. We're talking about coming up with the idea and testing it. And these are things that you do before you write. And if you think about what writing copy is, yes, you eventually have to write words, but it's the work that you do before you write that makes it a lot easier. So you're not sitting at a blank page and thinking, okay, what word do I use? What sentence do I say? When you do these steps first, that's how you come up with what to say. And then the next one is outlining. And this is when you are actually, okay, now you have your ideas, you've tested it, now I'm going to outline what it is I'm going to say. And then step 4 is when you actually write. And then there's the editing step. So that's 5 steps that I would follow. So the first one is the big idea. And like I said, this is what you want to do first, because this is how you position what it is that you were going to talk about and how you kind of frame it. And with the big idea, the way I think about it is there's really 3 things I think about when I come up with when I get a project from a client. They say, okay, Raymond, we have an online program that teaches you how to make money in real estate. And I say, okay, well, there's hundreds of programs like that. What makes yours different? And then as I talk to the client, or I think about how I'm going to write the copy for that project, the 3 things I think about are, the first is worldview. The second is authority. And then the third is the market. And if you kind of want to take the first letter of each one, you get like wham. So you can kind of just think about it that way. So yeah, these are the 3 things. And if you Google how to write copy and how to come up with ideas for copy, there's a lot of people who use questionnaires, and they might have like 50 different questions you ask, and there's a lot of things like that. But just to keep it simple, I think about these 3 concepts: the worldview, authority, and the market. And yeah, so I'll start with the worldview. What is that? A worldview is essentially what's happening in the world, in the news, that's something you can talk about, something that's relevant, that's relatable to the market that you're writing for. So for supplements, let's talk about that. For supplements, something going on in the worldview right now, you might take a current health trend, intermittent fasting maybe, or gluten-free, or something that's relevant, who someone who's health conscious is going to know about. And if you start to speak the language that they are reading about that's relevant, that's how you capture onto the worldview. So when they read your copy, it's not like they're reading something that they don't care about, because it's relevant to what they hear about in the news. It's relevant to what's going on in the world around them. That's why it's called the worldview. And to get those ideas, in this phase, when you're researching, you want to pay attention to the news, but don't follow the news. What I mean is you want to know what's going on in the news, but you don't want to be a reporter in the sense, because you don't want to say things after they happen, because that's kind of like, it's not as useful. And a little bit of a trick here is, I think it would be best explained with an example. So does someone else want to give an example of what they do, type of business that they have? Yeah, go ahead.
I'm starting a travel company for
Okay.
Women that want to travel solo, but with the security of a group.
Okay, that's great. Okay, so worldview news about that could be stories about someone, a woman who maybe went somewhere, maybe she got her ID stolen. You know, she went to the wrong place. She did something. You know, that's a bad story, right? So that might be a story that's a problem that someone has. Someone's thinking about that as they're making plans to travel, right? So instead of reporting about that story and using it like to kind of scare somebody, you could instead think ahead and predict what would happen if that were to happen. So you can say, look, chances are there's a chance you can go somewhere and you can lose your passport. What would you do? There's a chance you can go somewhere and Google Maps shuts down. Your internet goes down and you're lost and you're stuck. What would you do? So you can kind of forecast these situations. And if you are there to describe those situations in advance, you're showing yourself as someone who's thought about where they will eventually be. And that is something useful to someone who's traveling. They're going to want to know, oh yeah, if I'm going somewhere and I lose my internet or I don't know where to go, I don't want someone to charge me 5 times more than what I should pay. You know, things like that. They want to know about those things. So that's what you want to do. And before I go on to the second and third one, the way to think about these things is like this, where you have the worldview, authority, and the market. And there's some interlapping here, if that's the right word. I use the words for a living. I don't even know what the right word is. But so there's, you know, the worldview, authority, worldview, and the market. So you can talk about, you know, the different ones, but the big idea is really going to come from here, where they all connect. That's when that's why I frame it as 3 things, because as you think about the worldview, you start to ask questions. You think about the authority. You think about the market. Where they all connect is where you want to start to think about what you are going to say and how you position it, and that's where this comes from. So the next thing is the authority, and the authority is, why should someone listen to you? Why are you an expert? What have you done? Have you achieved something? Has your supplement shown results? Do you have testimonials? Does it actually work? You know, what makes you an expert in interface design, UX, right? Yeah, what makes you an expert? Like, what have you, you know, maybe you can show samples of work that you've done. Testimonials, again, are a great way to show that proof. That what makes you an authority? That's what you want to think about. So that's the second one. Any questions about that one? No? Okay. And then the third is the market. The market is the person who's actually going to read the copy, who's going to actually do something, or you want to do something, who's going to buy the product, sign up for a webinar, attend your class, whatever you are trying to get them to do. That's what the market is. And the market, you want to think about what they are thinking about. Put yourself in their shoes. What questions do they have? What objections do they have? What's going to prevent them from actually taking action? And as you list those questions out, that will help you think about what to say and what to write. So that's, these are the 3 things that, as you think about them and write down the questions, answer the questions, that will help you come up with the big idea. So real quick, I think, who wants to kind of use this and run it through their business, or something that they're doing, a project that you are working on? Anyone? Any volunteers? You want to deal with the travel company? Yeah? So we talked about the worldview, right? We talked about how to predict something that could happen and kind of forecast, okay, what happens if you get lost? What happens if you lose your passport? Stuff like that.
Down a bit more because it's a bit more niche than the big picture I gave you.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of aligned with people that are looking for some space and time now and want to go away kind of on their own in a group to kind of reconnect. So it's kind of not a retreat, it's a package holiday, but it's kind of, it's around experiences, cultural immersion, that kind of thing.
Okay.
So where you're going is very good in terms of, you know, things to think about while traveling, but also I want to tap into kind of the experiential, maybe, you know, a lot in the press has been around kind of women doing the things today that they want to do for themselves, and kind of there's obviously a lot in the press about the likes of us all traveling and taking time out and reflecting on is where we want to be, the place we want to be, and for me travel offers a different mindset for that.
Okay, so that might be more in the market, in the sense where you're thinking about the person who wants to actually travel, and what are they thinking about? They want those experiences, they want those to connect with different cultures. So that could be like here or here, because you are talking about the worldview and the news and whatnot, but also at the same time you're talking about the market, the actual person. So that would be an example of how it connects.
You've done it yourself.
Yeah, and that's where the authority comes in, because you can share your story about, you know, I used to want to have these experiences. I didn't have anyone to turn to, so I started to do the research myself. I had these, you know, experiences. I've done it. Now you have the authority. See, that's where it all connects. That's where then you can tell your story, talk to the market, talk to the person who wants to have those types of experiences, and then you talk about the worldview. Like, okay, now what do you do to get ready for it? What do you do? You know, stuff like that. So that's an example of how it all connects. Yeah.
Which is great, because I haven't really thought about being that specific with the worldview, so that's great.
Cool. So I'm going to keep moving on. So once you have that idea, the goal is to have a way to quickly summarize what it is that you offer. And this is called like an elevator pitch, or, you know, if you meet someone like an Uber driver or someone in a restaurant, a waiter, you can maybe present this to someone and get feedback. So that's the next step, is to actually test the idea. And the goal here is to, before you do the writing, you want to see if it's going to be actually useful and if it's going to be effective. And the way to think about this is, okay, you have those three things, you have those concepts. Now you want to go out and test it. You want to see if people are going to respond to it. So you might have, you can test this with your friends. You can test this, you know, if you have like a group of like a business group, like a networking group. You can test it with strangers. Maybe if you have a product, you can say, hey, by the way, I'm thinking about starting this company. It's a supplement. It's going to help you do this. I have experience, because, you know, you talk about your authority, you talk about the worldview, and have you heard about people who are doing this diet? You know, you can kind of use those three things to come up with a way to quickly describe what it is that you offer, and see how people respond to it. And this is what the testing phase is. Like I said, you can do it with friends. If you want to do it online, you can use like a landing page. Who here doesn't know what a landing page is? We all know what a landing page is. It's like a simple one-page website. You can spend $5 or something per day and get people to go to the landing page, read about what it is that you do, watch a video, and see if they have an interest. Does that all make sense? Okay. So that's the testing phase. The next phase is, well, the next kind of secondary phase after this phase is to gather feedback. As you're introducing what it is that you are offering, you want to keep track of the questions that people have. Marker's kind of died. You want to keep track of the questions. You want to keep track of the objections. If someone says, oh, that sounds, you know, sounds too good to be true, or I've tried that before, or, you know, I don't believe you are an expert, or, you know, people are going to have objections. People are naturally resistant to things as they're presented with them, because they're defending themselves. They don't want to be let down. If they don't want to, you know, buy something or buy into an idea if there's nothing there. So they're going to object to it. They're going to have questions. And then some people are going to be excited. They're going to, they might be excited. And then you want to keep track of these things. Like if they're excited and you start to like say, hey, so I have this idea, I'm thinking about starting a business, or I have this supplement, or I'm starting a travel company. And if they say something like, where do I sign up? Or tell me more, how can I buy it? Then you know that your idea is valid, if you start to get people who want to actually use it, okay? And then those people could eventually become people who you can ask more questions to, figure out, okay, so, you know, what would be your budget for something like this, or, you know, what would be useful for you? then you can use that information to help you write the copy. So you see how this, you come up with the idea first, you test it, and what you are doing at this, through this testing phase and idea phase, is you're gathering the research and the information that you will eventually use to write. And you see how this is useful. If you were just going to go onto a blank page and like, oh, what do I say? Hey, I have a company, it's really great. It's not going to be that useful. But if you know exactly what people are thinking, you know what questions they have, you know their objections, then that makes this whole process a lot better. Any questions about that? Yeah.
That's good when you have your own business, but
Yeah.
if you work for clients, they won't
Yeah.
provide you with all this.
It's tough. It's tough. They won't always, because they would just expect you to know it. For one, I've worked with a lot of clients. I have a few now, but I've written for all types of products. Especially when I was getting started, like I was just taking any project I could because it was money, right? So yeah, you kind of have to approach each client as a specific use case. Sometimes the client will be super helpful, and they'll be like, hey, if you want to get on a Skype call, I'll be on a call, answer questions. Sometimes they'll give you a questionnaire or survey and you have to work with that. Other times you have to do your own research. So I can't like say there's a universal way to do it, but kind of use this to work with what you have and do the best you can in the position that you're in, because you know that's really the best that you can do at that point. But yeah, but I mean, if the client, you want to eventually find clients, if you're working for clients who are willing to get on a call with you, answer questions, because they know if they're doing that, it will help them. If it helps you, then it helps them. And those are the right kind of clients to have. And if a client, you know, if they're not willing to do that, then maybe they're not the best client to have.
No, usually they are.
Yeah.
But just needs to be done so fast. That
Yeah, they have deadlines and they want to get it done quickly. Yeah, yeah.
But it's
Yeah. Well, hopefully, just thinking about it will kind of speed things up. Because now, like, you're not thinking about, oh, I need you to answer 100 questions for me. It's just like 3 things. Okay, what have you done in your market? Why are you an authority? Or what have you done that I can use? What testimonials do you have? You know, that's one. You can use that and keep moving along. So, yeah. So, okay. So what you're doing at this point, then you're gathering the questions, objections, and the reactions. If they're excited, if they're angry, you know, you just want to you want to pay attention to these things. And because the overall goal with copy is...
Can I just go back to, I was just
Yeah.
thinking of, with your question there.
Yeah.
In terms of all of those objections, questions, and I don't know what kind of clients you work for. I'm a marketing consultant.
Yeah.
Sales teams have all of that information because
Yeah,
they're
true.
constantly
Yeah,
gathering that. So there's always a quick way to get to that information if there's a sales team.
What is again? Sorry? What did you say again? The name?
Those questions, I was just saying that those are the kinds of information that sales teams are gathering on a daily basis.
And that's a good point. You can
So
talk
it's
to the
easy to
yeah.
tap into that.
You can talk to the customer service, because they're the ones who have to deal with the customers who are calling like, hey, you know, I got a package, I want to have a question about this. And if you talk to a customer service rep, the owner of the company will gladly pass you along to that team, because they, you know, he doesn't have to deal with it or she doesn't have to deal with it. And plus, the customer service reps are the people who are actually fielding the questions. And they're the ones who know, oh, this is the most common question. A lot of customers are wondering about this. They always call them and ask about this. And that way, you know, with copywriting, like if you're doing sales and you're going door to door, you're selling on the phone, you're selling in person, you can see how people are responding to you. You can, you know, talk about something, you can see if they're excited. But with copywriting, with writing, you don't have that luxury. So what you have to do is proactively respond to the things that they are going to eventually think about as you're talking about what it is that you're talking about. So that's the goal of that, is to figure out the questions, the reactions, objections, because what you want to do is kind of come up with different counters for each one. So if, let's say a question is, what would be a good question? Like if you're talking about supplements and you say something about the supplement, you only have to take it. Or what would be a common question for supplements? Like what would be a good, like what's a pretty common question that you would get, or anything? Yeah. How long? Like how long should I expect to take it? You know? Yeah. Cool. So yeah, someone's gonna say like, And usually most questions and objections are going to be around price, how much does it cost, how do I get it, does it actually work, how can I trust you, stuff like that. So, but yeah, you know, how long until I get the result. So as you're listening these out, you can come up with ways to actually counter them or ways to respond to them in a way that's benefit driven. So it's like, you know, experience results in just 3 months or something like that. Or you can't say that. With supplements, I guess you have to be more careful. Or and this is where you have to kind of be clever with what you say and imply what you want to say, but without directly saying it, because you can get in trouble. So you can say something like, some of our customers have experienced results in 3 months, because you're not saying all customers, you're saying some. And then may have experienced results instead of have experienced results. So you can do a little wordplay with that. But what the goal is to come up with those ways to respond to it before you actually have to. So you don't have to field the phone calls if they're calling in, because if you explain it all on one page or an advertisement or a website, then all the questions are answered there.
I think what's difficult, because of giving out generic advice, it's like my actual response is, well, I can't make a judgment unless I've got your whole history and I know everything about you and I can do it properly.
Yeah.
To just give out random advice, I'm not really allowed to do that. So I kind of get stuck in the place where I can't even do this may help. Well, I kind of can say this may help you, but I feel, for me, that feels a bit too woolly, because I like to be specific. So that's where I feel I get really stuck with selling the supplements.
What was the other product you have? Is
Health testing.
so actually that could be led to cross-selling between those two things, because you then can talk about the supplements not in a standalone way.
I do. Once I've got results, I send people an email and I try and get them to do a consultation, which most do. I don't actually cross-sell supplements from the test, because again, legally, I'm responsible for the person. If I say, oh, try this, I'm legally responsible. And if I say try this and I don't know what else is going on and other contraindications, then I might say try this and it might be contraindicated.
Yeah.
So I get in this really sticky place. It's almost harder for me because I am qualified, if that makes sense, because I become responsible for everything I tell people to do. So I could be sued.
Well, that could be an actual strength, that you can say, other supplement companies are making promises, but they are not coming from someone who's qualified. I'm not allowed to make a promise because I'm legally responsible or something like this. So that could be, you can turn that into a selling point. So you can say, like you might read about supplements that are guaranteed to work, that are, they guarantee they'll work in 9 months or 6 months or something like that. But because of my professional background, I'm not allowed to say that. So you can use that as a strength, like as to kind of build upon it. So it's like, I have a friend that calls that, he calls it, I'm sorry, go ahead.
As a public, I would feel suspicious about that.
Yeah.
If I read something like that, I would feel like.
If it was guaranteed to work, and yeah.
Why you don't give me an answer?
Yeah, and this comes down to like, a lot of people, are when they hear marketing, they're so used to being tricked, and people think, oh, well, how could we trick someone to buy something? And the more truthful you are in what you're saying, the better. People will respond to that. They react to that. Yeah. And like you can turn those like quote unquote weaknesses, like, oh, I can't say that, but you can turn those into strengths. And that's where copy comes in. You can like use that to work for you instead of, you think it's going to work against you, but if you just kind of reframe it a little bit, it's actually a benefit versus something that's going to like, think might work against you. Yeah, you're welcome. So yeah, so that's what it comes down to is coming up with ways to respond to all the questions, all the objections, things that people are thinking about. And okay, so now let's talk about actually writing. And here's, okay, so you have your ideas, you know what the market is thinking, you have a good idea at this point of what it is that you are gonna say and how you're gonna pitch it and whatnot. So the way to think about this, what I usually start with is, what is the most common, so if you think about it like a sales funnel, like what is the most common objection or question Or, what is the most common thing that people want to know about? And that's usually where you want to start with. It's the question that comes up the most, because you know that that's the biggest audience of people who are going to be thinking about that. As you start to present what it is that you're going to talk about, most people are going to have the same question. So that's kind of where you start, and then the next one, eventually you work your way down. And as you're working your way down through the funnel, here's where you come to actually selling it. So here's kind of a formula you can think about to organize what it is that you want to say. And this formula can work in websites, emails, Facebook ads, and you will have to adjust it based on what you're writing, but it's a good way to think about what it is that you want to say. So you might have seen this before. It's called AIDA, A-I-D-A. And the first one is attention. That's important because if you don't have their attention, they're not going to listen to what you have to say. And then after you have their attention comes interest. And then you have their interest, and okay, they get to the point when they desire what it is that you have, and then action. So a good example is with the attention phase is usually something that's a benefit, and it speaks directly to the market. So a good example with the UX, UI design, right? Do you offer that as a service to clients, or who is your market for that type of service?
For the last 7 years, I've worked for companies.
Okay. So you freelance?
I'm considering it.
Okay. So you have a virtual position at a company?
No.
Okay. Okay, so let me put it this way. If you were to write copy...
Are you asking me for an example of a product that I've worked on?
Yeah, that could work too. I'm trying to get an example here.
Plenty of Fish. It's a dating site.
Okay.
Okay. So that's a product, and part of it is, this is all, content strategy and conversion. So
yeah,
resonating with.
Okay, so yeah, like
deeper levels. Yeah.
So for a dating site, attention, someone who's looking for a date, right? Someone who wants to do online dating, you would say something that gets their attention. The interest would be, why your site or why that site versus other sites. Desire, okay, now how do I sign up? Is there a cost? What's the price? Is there a special? Is there a discount or something like that? And then action is when you actually say, okay, go here now to sign up. Go here now to start a free trial.
And that's what the marketing team does.
Yeah.
And user experience converts you to sign up at the other end.
So once you have the information, you actually use it to create
more
the
conversion. It gets into it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Because then you have different ads too. You have Facebook ads, you have Google ads, and you kind of have to readjust it based on what you're writing for. Yeah. But if you were going to write a website, this is kind of the formula that you want to follow. And if you look at most websites, if you go on like even major websites like Apple or Tesla, the first thing you see on the website is of like a video of the product or a headline with a picture of the product, and immediately just kind of pulls you in because it's like, okay, I want to know more about this. This looks cool. And then as you scroll down, it will say, we'll talk about the features, we'll talk about the benefits, and then oh yeah, I'm interested now, I might want to buy it. And then it might say, okay, well, for a limited time, you might get it at a low price or something that makes you actually want to desire to get it in that moment versus like closing the page and bookmarking it. And then action is going to be a call to action that makes you want to actually do something. Any questions about that? Okay. So, so let's talk about how.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
How would you define the length of each? Like, how do you know when to stop? For example, you don't want to oversell.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you don't want to, like, if someone's ready to buy, you don't want to keep talking, right? But then if they're not ready to buy, you don't want to like assume that they are. So, it's a hard question to ask because like the best way to you don't want to say more than you need to, but in some cases it's good to just say as much as you can, and then through testing and different strategies figure out what's necessary for different audiences. And that could be also like a user experience thing where you might have a website with a button on it, but then the button stays at the top of the page or something as you scroll down. Because someone who just goes to the website, they just want to immediately buy. So you don't need to have a long page.
So I think
it kind of is more like a sales process strategy thing versus, yeah. But when it comes to actually writing, it's good to come up with the different ways to respond to different questions and objections and whatnot. So you want, like, in my opinion, you want to write as much as possible, but then use what you write in different ways. Like if it's a Facebook ad and your goal is to get them from Facebook to a website, then you might not need a super long form copy. Although I've written that and it works sometimes. So sometimes it's just like a sentence and a link. That works too. So, but when you come up with the big idea, you know the objections, you know the questions, then you are prepared to do long form or short form. You know what to say in short form ads, long form ads, Google ads. You can kind of readjust what you've created to work in different
Can I add to that?
Situations. Yeah.
Just a little
Yeah.
bit. I think that's more like the levels of conversion, because the Facebook ad's going to be one conversion, which takes you to the next location, but they're not actually saying I'm buying it.
Yeah.
So then you get somewhere else, whether that's a landing page or someone else, then you have different calls to action depending on what you're stating at what point in time, and that's effective for conversion for landing pages. It's nothing to do with writing the copy, but you are.
It's all connected
talking about
because
the
you are going to be
strategy.
working with people as you're writing copy
Yeah.
or to actually do that stuff.
And you can also take somebody deeper and provide more copy, content strategy to support one part of it, and then continue to ask them for conversion steps along the way.
Exactly.
And you test it and see what works.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. So the next thing. So now let's say you've written those counters, like the questions, the objections, and you have a benefit way of describing what it is that you want to write about. Now those are going to be the headlines or the subheads on like a page. So you might have, like for Tesla's page, it might say lowest energy usage, most miles per gallon. So those are like, these talks about the benefits. And then you might scroll down a little bit and then it'll say like the prices or whatever, and that's like a subheadline. But then there's like other copy that goes between the main sections. So if you've ever seen a website or a blog post, you have a headline, then you scroll down a little bit and there's a subhead, and there's some copy. And this is called like the body copy. Another way to think about this too, if you're doing an email, this would be the subject line, and it gets them to open. But then there's actual words inside the email that they would read to see what is this about, how can I learn more about it. And that's what I want to talk about next. Like, what do you say in the body copy as you're writing things, as you're writing ads, blog posts, website copy. And the way to think about this is you want to back up whatever you're going to say here, like your claim or the headline, with proof. And this comes down to coming up with ways to support the headline that you are writing. So if you say, going back to the travel business, what would be a good benefit? How to travel the world in a safe, how to travel and see the world. Like, what's a good benefit? How to travel and see the world, full hands-on exclusive experience where everything's taken care of for you. I'm kind of just brainstorming here, but like how to, your turn. Like
time out and view the world.
Yeah,
through
like
the
a
eyes
good
of
benefit.
culture.
Yeah. So how to experience different cultures, how to travel the world, experience different cultures, and so you would come up with a really good benefit, and then it's like, okay, that sounds cool, but now tell me more. Like, what exactly does it, how does it work and whatnot? And that's when you would come up with proof, when it sounds almost too good to be true. Like, how to travel the world without spending tens of thousands of dollars, something like that. How to travel the world for 6 months on, a shoestring budget or something. Like something where it sounds like, oh, it's too good to be true. But then if you support it with actual proof via, testimonials, research, which is big in health and supplements. So if you say like the supplement, how to, whatever the supplement, the benefit of taking it is, but then you support it with research. So a study from Harvard, you would find the research to support what it is that you are saying. So that's another way to support, or just to show proof. Testimonials. Also, another good one is demonstration. And this is especially good if you have a physical product, Because if you have a physical product, a whiteboard, something, how to present your information to audiences without burning through multiple pieces of paper, something like that, you know. But the point is that you want to like explain what it is, but then show them. Do a video of the actual product. So if you are writing for a company that has physical products, always, in my opinion, I would try to get them to use video, because people want to see how it works. That's why when you see like an infomercial, they're showing the product, the knives or whatever they're selling on late night TV, they're showing them actually being used, because that helps people understand what it is that they're going to eventually buy. Cool. So, any questions about that? This is my notes. Got a little lost. Any questions about that? No? Okay, keep moving. So, and then at the very end, I'll stick around and ask some answer questions. So the last step, so you've written at this point. You have a draft. You've taken your thoughts from your head. You've gotten them onto a document, a sheet of paper, and the most important part, once you're at this point, is just getting it done. And it's not going to be perfect the first time or the second time or the third time. It's going to be a little bit jumbled up. Your ideas are going to be in different places. There's going to be typos. The grammar is going to be off. But that's okay. That's normal, because it's done. So now it's the next step, which is the editing step. And when you edit, some good tips to follow is, one, you could read it out loud or read it to a friend. And that way you can catch all the awkwardness or the stuff that doesn't make sense. They can, you know, if you're speaking it, then it's gonna, if it doesn't sound like a conversation you would say to a friend, if it sounds awkward or funny, then it's gonna read that way too. So that's something to avoid. But to kind of help you know what to look out for, there's 3 things I would recommend. And if it spells out cub if you take the first letter. So the first thing is confusing. You know, if it's confusing, if you're trying to describe something and it doesn't make sense, you're using too many words, or it's just confusing, you don't want to do that. If it's unbelievable, and I'll explain how to fix these, but the second one is unbelievable. And the third is boring. You know, if it's just kind of, if someone's zoning out when they're reading it, it's not going to get read, and no one's going to actually do something if it's boring. So the first is confusing. If it's confusing, you want to simplify it. And this becomes difficult if you are taking a complicated concept and you don't know how to phrase it in a way that's simple. So a way to work with that is to use a kind of like. So use something that they understand to explain what it is that's difficult. So if you are describing a way how your supplement works, and instead of going through all the science, you could describe the science, but you could say it's kind of like how plumbing works. You know, like it's kind of like how, and then take something that they understand, and then use that to something to describe what it is that you want to say. That way they get it. So that's a way to make it less confusing, and it's like, oh yeah, I get it. That's, you know, that's kind of like how that works. Oh, that makes sense now. So that's how to deal with that. For something that's unbelievable, chances are you haven't supported it enough with proof. You don't have enough testimonials. It sounds too good to be true. You don't have enough videos that showcase what it is and how it works. There's not enough proof, so you just add more proof for that one. And if it's boring, you either want to get rid of it. It might not even be necessary to have it. If it's boring, like, do I even need to say this? It might not need to be said, so you can get rid of it, or you can kind of rephrase it and reframe it in a way that's more exciting. So that's how you deal with that. And yeah. And finally, give me some last-minute tips to make your copy more persuasive, more effective. We talked about that, how to be effective when you're writing. And these are some just universal ways to get people to react to what it is that they are reading or just doing in general. It's human nature. So it's kind of built into our psychology. And the first one is urgency. People, if there's not an immediate need to take care of it in the immediate moment, chances are they're going to put it off. They're going to say, I'll do that later. But that eventually leads to never. People will procrastinate. They'll say, you know, it sounds good, but maybe later. And in some cases, that's fine. They're just not your best customers. But in some, they might need a little bit of a push to get them to take action. So you can say something like, there's a due date. You know, if it's an event, that's a good way to naturally position what it is that you are talking about. Like, hey, you know, if you don't sign up by this date, the sale is going to end, or the event's going to start on that date, or our next trip is on the 30th of next month. You have to sign up by this date because I need to get ready and get your plans together and your itinerary and whatnot. So it's, you know, it's the urgency is implied, where it's like, okay, well, if I'm going to do this, I'm really going to do this, and that's the way to get the people to respond to what it is that you are saying or offering. And the next thing is just to add a bonus. People feel, people take more action when they get a little bit extra from the purchase. You know, like this, you know, if you sign up for a trip, I'll also include a free gift bag with, you know, accessories, maybe for traveling, a beach towel, just a, you know, a gift bag that costs a little bit on your end, but it makes the value of what it is that you're selling a lot higher. Because it's like, oh, now I get this bonus. I get something special for taking action. So that's something else. And scarcity is another thing we're just naturally designed to want something if there's only a limited amount of it is available. You know, if there's only 10 spots available, if there's only a certain amount of our supplements left in the store, people will naturally say, well, you know, if I don't do this now, I might not get it. So then they're more likely to take action. And these are sort of like, I guess you can say they're a little bit, they could be used, it's psychology, so it could be used in a mischievous way. I'm sure you've seen some websites that try to like imply a false sense of scarcity. You know, we only have 10 more of these downloads available or something like that when it's a digital product. Like, that doesn't make sense. But, you know, like, but there are also ways to get someone to respond. So if you are offering something that solves a problem and helps someone out, and you can naturally use these mechanisms to get them to do something, then I don't see any harm in doing that.
Shouldn't just be conspicuous. Shouldn't just be conspicuous.
Conspicuous?
So obvious that you are actually doing it.
Oh, what do you mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't have to be sneaky about it.
There are sites where urgency is really just.
It doesn't make sense.
You want to fuck me.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's conspicuous, then you just click it.
Yeah. And it works. Yeah. That's why they do it, because it actually works. But it's like, but you know that it's BS. You know. Yeah. But.
My friend booked the wrong hotel. She's a marketing director.
That reminds me,
the wrong hotel
Yeah.
because booking.com was going down. And she messaged me going, I just booked it, I got freaked out. And she sent me the link and it was the wrong hotel that she wanted to
Yeah, they really scare you. It gets inside of your head. And especially too, I was looking at a place and the prices kept going up. Like I go back to the site and like, now it's this price. I'm like, how can, yeah, you gotta delete the cookies because they make the prices go up. Yeah, that's horrible. Yeah. So that kind of concludes things. Any questions? Anything on your mind? Any ways I can help you out?
Do you have suggestions for SEO copywriting?
Not really what I do, but yeah, and like you normally you're kind of restricted to using the keywords that they give you, right? Yeah. Not really what I do, but I know about it. Is there any like particular thing that you're working on right now, like that you could use help with, or?
I was working on that, but it's because all of this it's wonderful, but then when you have to write copyright for SEO,
yeah,
all of this, you can't use it. Right?
Yeah. Well, I know that one thing that works out well is you look at what's already been done and you kind of magnify it a little bit. So if you're writing a blog post, 10 travel tips for Bali, you might do a blog post 21 travel tips. Because it's just like the same thing that's ranking on the first page, but you're adding more. And if someone who's looking for that particular thing, they're going to want to know, oh, I want the bigger list. So you just magnify what's working.
Thanks.
Yeah. Anyone else?
Key sources for researching. So initially when you get onto this and we're looking at kind of what we're putting into content, do you have any key sources that you go to get worldviews and accumulated in one place?
Yeah, for the worldview stuff, I want to pay attention to the news. And I try to imagine, okay, I am my prospect. What sites do I visit? what am I thinking about in the morning when I wake up? You know, where do I go? Am I an active user? What groups am I in? What am I doing? What am I thinking about? Yeah, and then you also want to look at what other people in your industry are doing. You know, if they're doing something, like you can see, well, who else is selling what I'm selling and how are they approaching it? And you can kind of pick and choose, well, I like the way that they do that. That seems to be working for them. I'm going to do something similar, and, you know, I'm going to add to it, make it better. And then you can kind of work around and take the best elements of every competitor that you have and then combine it to your own, make it part of your business.
Do you have an exercise that you do when you're trying to get into the creative writing mode?
Exercise to get into creative mode? No, I mean, a lot of writers drink. I don't really drink that much. But no, it's a good question. I mean, I guess traveling is mine, because I like to be in new places and experience new cultures, meet new people, because it opens my mind to like the bigger world. I don't feel trapped in, like, well, to me it feels trapped if I'm working from the same space every single day. So I go to places like this or cafes where I can be around people, because that just helps me think. So I think it's more of like a personal thing too. You have to find out what's going to inspire you, what's going to motivate you, what's going to help you come up with different ideas or concepts. For some writers, it's drinking. That works for them, then good. Yeah. Anything else? Any more questions? We all good? Well, I hope you all enjoyed it. And if you want to follow me on, you know, Instagram, my website, or Facebook, you can add me and follow me here. I just share stuff. I'm not big on social, but I do share stuff. So. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.